Alright, this guy Jsnip4 gives really relevant news about the economy and such that you may have missed. So I just wanted to share this little clip. Pay attention to it. He's doing a lot of reading, but he also has great commentary. And if you like it, please go over to his channel. That's Jsnip4 on YouTube and give him a subscribe. I really like this guy, and I trust him. I think he's sincere and he does a great job at capturing important news and sharing it with us. So check it out.
Folks, we are in big trouble, and most Americans have no idea. Thus, central bank market intervention is to keep this insanely complex world of ours going for another day, another week, month, or year. Unfortunately, time is running out. Not because the central banks are running out of paper to print money, but because the cheap and affordable energy that runs the system is running out. I wrote about this in my article, The Bloodbath Continues in the U.S. Major Oil Industry. That article received the most Facebook hits ever at 1,300 plus, which means some people are finally waking up. Precious metals investors ignoring the energy data are making a big mistake. Why? Because the Fed and central banks can continue manipulating the markets forever if it wasn't for the coming energy cliff. Unfortunately, a lot of folks in the alternative media believe in the abiotic oil theory. This is the oil theory that suggests oil is made deep below the mantle of the earth, which allows oil fields to magically refill. So there is no real threat of peak oil. Individuals who believe this nonsense, such as Jerome Corsi in his book Black Gold Stranglehold, have lost all sense of logic and reason. While many of these individuals who believe in the abiotic oil theory are quite intelligent, I am surprised how completely stupid they can be on this subject matter. Real proof why abiotic oil is another lousy conspiracy misleading investors. Those who perpetuate the abiotic oil theory say that the Russians are producing more oil than ever before because they are drilling ultra-deep wells, tapping into this limitless supply of oil. Well, if that was true, someone needs to tell the Russians aren't drilling ultra-deep wells to get to their oil. Rather, they are drilling a hell of a lot of more horizontal wells, just like the insane U.S. shale oil industry. So, in just 2 years, Russian horizontal well drilling has increased from 22% to 34% from 2014 to 2015. Folks, horizontal wells aren't ultra-deep wells, tens of thousands of feet down. Rather, they are more like the typical shale wells that are 7 to 10,000 feet down with long laterals to get to the oil. If Russia is drilling more horizontal wells, just like the U.S. shale oil industry, they are also running out of cheap, high-quality oil. A few months back, I stated that I was going to write an article on this subject matter. I need to do so because a lot of people are being misled by this erroneous conspiracy theory. Now, the reason I have been laying out all this information is to explain central bank precious metals manipulation and how it's all tied together with energy in the markets. If you are only looking at the COMEX paper trading in daily charts, then you only have a small window of the overall market manipulation. Furthermore, precious metals price rigging is only a small part of the total amount of central bank's market intervention. David Stockman discusses this in his recent interview titled Fiscal Bloodbath Coming This Fall, David Stockman, on USAWatchdog.com. In the interview, he goes on to say that the Fed and central banks have propped up the bond market by purchasing $20 trillion in treasuries and bonds over the past 20 years. This doesn't include the trillion spent propping up the global equity or stock markets. All this is being done to hold off the world's largest bank run in history. Central banks terrified about the world's largest bank run in history. What the Fed and central banks are really worried about is the world's largest bank run in history. This is why they are now throwing everything in the kitchen sink to prop up the markets. We must remember all the debt, derivatives, and money printing is being done to keep people from freaking out and starting a global bank run. Thus, the Fed and central banks are manipulating the market by controlling market psychology. This goes well beyond gold and silver price rigging. It is a full spectrum, wide-ranging, all-encompassing market intervention never seen before in history. This chart provides the reason in numbers why central banks continue to rig the market. So let's look at that. 217 trillion, real estate, securitized debt, 94 trillion, equity, stock market, 55 trillion, gold and silver, Last on the list, a paltry $3.1 trillion. According to data for 2015, the $369 trillion in global stocks, bonds, and real estate, gold and silver only represent $3.1 trillion or less than 1% of the total. Actually, David Stockman, in his interview posted above, states that the global bond market is closer to $100 trillion. Regardless, the massive amount of money digital printing has been done to prop up the $366 trillion in stocks, bonds, and real estate. We must understand all the debt and leverage in the system is the same as when banks in the 1920s loaned out a great deal more gold certificates than they had gold in their vaults. Printing and issuing a lot more gold certificates worked fine until the point that it didn't. In all reality, the U.S. and global financial system are already dead. The citizens of the world just don't know it yet. The only thing that is holding it up is a lot of hot air and central bank market intervention. However, the factor that we take away the Fed and central bank's printing press is the disintegration of the U.S. and global oil industry. I am working on an article about the U.S. oil industry is now cannibalizing itself, he says. While there has been news released stating that the oil majors such as Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron are now making profits, this is nothing more than white noise obfuscating the facts. For example, Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips reduced their capital expenditures by a stunning 40% first quarter 2017 versus first quarter 2016. 40%. The major reason for the reduction in this spending is that these companies are in desperate need of free cash flow. In the past few years, they have been borrowing money to pay for this capital expenditures that they reduced, known as CapEx, or worse, dividends. Many investors who are shareholders in ExxonMobil or Chevron do so because they get a nice fat quarterly dividend. The oil companies realize that if they start cutting dividends, what is the motivation for investors to hold on to their stock? This is especially true as ExxonMobil and Chevron stock prices continue to fall due to lower oil prices. We are now experiencing the beginning stages of the disintegration of the U.S. and global oil industry. While the central banks continue to prop up the markets with money printing and massive liquidity, the biggest global bank run in history is on its way. So, I realized that was a long one, but I had to get that out. How do you protect yourself from something such as that? Again, he kind of talked about it in there. And they're throwing the least amount of money at it. Gold and silver. It's the one thing that history has told us time and time again will save your bacon when the timing is right. And the timing's not right. You can tell by the prices. You can tell by the manipulation. But as he said, this will happen until it doesn't. This works fine until it doesn't. The manipulation of gold and silver until it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you better hope you have some precious metals. Let me remind you of the rule change again for the 100 millionth time. Since I have new subscribers, I do this for them. The CME group put a rule change in for precious metals. Circuit breakers. If they move too much in too short of amount of time, circuit breakers are triggered and you can't buy, sell, trade any of the futures contracts for gold and silver. In other words, the paper market, which sets the price of these things. They never had that rule in place in the entire history of paper trading gold and silver COMEX market. But in 2014, for some crazy reason, they got the bright idea to put that into place. Why do you suppose? Well, we learned they're not trying to cap it down, they're trying to cap it up, as he discussed. And as you've seen recently, it was $18.50 for silver. They slammed that baby down to $16.14, I think was the lowest that I saw. In a matter of days. Okay, matter of days. And now, of course, up to today was up pretty significantly. Silver jumped up. I mean, well, actually, right now it's $16.74. That's a big jump from $16.15 or $14, whatever the hell it was. Not that that matters. Again, they can slam it whenever they feel like it. But the point being is that's going to save your bacon one of these days, and you need to start getting it. And since I'm reading a silverdoctors.com article, they have a website, sdbullion.com, where they sell, you guessed it, gold and silver bullion. In the description box of my video, I also have a link there, /Jsnip4, it's on the link. because they said if I send any people over there, they have a landing page for Jsnip4 subscribers, and you can get a 10-ounce bar of silver at spot price, no fee above it, dead spot price. So literally, it's $16.74 right now for an ounce of silver. That's what you pay for a 10-ounce bar. It's fantastic. But it is a specific bar, and if you go to that link, /Jsnip4, sdbullion.com/Jsnip4, you will see the particular bar that they're talking about. It's not good for any bar. It's only that one bar. But nonetheless, and it's also for new customers only, they told me, which is fine. Like I said, I wish I was a new customer, because I'd go use my own freaking code and get a 10-ounce bar in spot. Anyways, if you've been thinking about getting silver, precious metals, gold, anything, I used to own gold a little bit, and years ago, I was like, nah, I see the most massive upside potential for silver than gold. Even though gold is more expensive, I believe silver will absolutely outperform gold, because it's now 70-to-1 ratio with gold. It needs to be around 20-to-1, like history shows. And that day will be coming when all this crap starts unwinding, I believe. So that in and of itself would be a huge gain of if you had silver versus the same amount invested in gold. And as I always say, you're not going to be upset owning either. You're going to be real happy owning precious metals. But you're going to be, I think, a lot more happier holding some silver. Again, he kind of paints a good picture on all this stuff, how it's attached to, the price movements of oil and that sort of thing, and why price has to go up here. Again, they're propping the whole market up. That's all they care about. Real estate, stock market, just throw all the money in the kitchen sink at it that we can, while we can. Again, until we can't. And when the can't comes, you better look out below. And let's not forget 1988 cover of The Economist magazine, who's owned partially by the Rothschild dynasty. Get ready for a new world currency 30 years from now in 2018. With a Thnx rising from the burning paper ashes of dollars, paper money, different countries' currencies, all paper. The big old gold coin around its neck. Precious metals, giant gold coin, 2018. What are the chances 30 years ago, 29, that they had a little message for us sheeple? And just by chance, the central banks are printing money out of control, the most ever. The derivatives products, 500 trillion at least dollars worth out there. Many people say it's way more than that. Which are bets on the bet of something else, another asset. A derivative is a bet on something else. And the Federal Reserve just came out the other day and said they call that a great asset. Derivatives are a great asset. So having a bet in my hand on something else, how it may perform, is a good asset. Well, this can't be an asset. It's only a bet on the asset. It's a bet on the asset. It's not the asset. But the Federal Reserve said it was. Again, I believe endgame is playing out. I believe the end game is playing out. You don't want to be on the other side of this without any precious metals in your possession. That's all I'm going to tell you. Period.